The other day I posted on the Triple Rare Twitter and it kind of blew up, and that's really cool. I hope that I can give you guys cool things in the future too, that this isn't just a one-time thing, but even if it is, it's really cool to be able to do something cool for the community. While we're speaking of waifus, there is a new pseudo free-to-play archetype within Nectar, which are the Venus flytrap waifu things. This deck is unintentionally free to play. This is because almost all of the triple rares either don't really work with the deck or they're musketeers. What I wanted to do with the deck was plus on the board, and then this would lead us to a higher chance multi-swing for a finishing turn. Now what inspired me to build this was a guy on Twitter I really like. His name's Noah. He started posting about this deck like day one. And I was like, oh, that's really sick, because both of the cool grade 3s for the deck are double rares, and the Break Ride is a rare. So I was like, oh, this would be super easy to build. I only pulled like 2 of each of the maidens. Not even that. I had to craft 5, I think, to finish the deck. So that's how like just devoted I am to like building this kind of deck. So I built this just for fun, like for my own personal reason, and then playing it, I'm like, okay, I would like to probably share with you what I've learned playing it. So there are 2 maidens. There is Maiden of Venus Trap Muse. She says limit break when this unit attacks the Vanguard. Attacks, not hits. Counterblast 1. Look at top 5 cards from top of your deck and then call a card with the same name as your unit. This is a very Nectar thing. They like to call cards of the same name out. She then says when a rearguard with the same card name as a unit you already have is placed by a card effect, she gets plus 5k. This is stackable, so she becomes gigantic. Then there is the reverse Venus Trap. She says counterblast 1 and lock a rearguard. Look at the top 5 and call a card. She gets plus 5k. Very simple. Very effective. It is a technically +1. You don't get to use the card you're locking, obviously, but at the end of your turn, you will be up a card. She then says the same ability as Muse, where she gets plus 5k whenever you call a card with the same name. Weirdly enough, when you read the 2, usually the reverse unit is like the stronger, more aggressive unit, but in this case, the plussing one is the reverse unit, and the more aggressive one is the normal unit. So I think that's why they didn't give her Break Ride, because they kind of knew you'd probably be riding them in like this weird flippy floppy version, like one turn, one the other, like whatever. With this in mind, off of their abilities and this whole Nectar thing of wanting the same cards, we don't play many one-ofs. I play one of, and that's just like kind of fill in the grade 1 slot. So like a typical turn, you'll go into reverse on turns that you need to start building the board, so that way you don't have to use the cards in your hand. Then later on in the game, we can then ride up to just Muse and use her counterblast to take advantage of that full board to then call out a free unit that can then swing and maybe possibly finish the game for us. Since we usually want to go into reverse as soon as possible, we don't really care that much about the Break Ride, which is kind of ironic because he also isn't very strong. He has the normal ability of boosted, gets plus 3k, which I don't like. I don't like when they have to be boosted for the plus 3k. He then says, when rode upon, Break Ride, plus 10k. Call one of each from your deck of the same name as 2 of your rearguards. Total 2 cards. You can still call 1 card if you only have 1 rearguard. So this is cool. It's still a plussing. I like it. But it doesn't give us any aggression. And if we're already going to be doing this play, I'd rather just ride into reverse. That's why when you look at the deck, I am playing 3 self-damagers. 2 of the grade 2s and 1 of the grade 1. I was originally playing, I think 3 or 4 copies of the self-damager, but there would just be a lot of turns where I would draw into her late game, and then she's just an 8k vanilla, and yes, getting to that limit break early is nice, but it's worse when you have a unit that is worthless late game. Alberto is our countercharger. He is the MVP of the deck. It feels kind of like early days Shadow Paladin, where you really rely on him hitting the Vanguard so that we can continue to make our plays. This does mean he kind of fights with Muse, because Muse needs to swing at Vanguard, so typically we want to start countercharging as soon as possible. It does work with the reverse one, because she doesn't ever care about swinging at Vanguard, so you can swing her into rearguard and then Alberto at Vanguard. So then technically that plus didn't even use up any of our counterblast. Cherry Bloom and Cherry Stone are kind of weird for me. Stone is nice because she can go and get us an interceptor. This ability can even work when we're on grade 1. So if you want, you can place her behind your Vanguard, swing, put her back, and then go get an interceptor so we can start blocking ourselves earlier. I don't really love that play because we want to get to our limit break sooner, and having to do that makes it so we might not. You also can't attack with it because it's tapped, and we lose stone, so it's not a plus. So she's a little awkward. Bloom, on the other hand, is a +1. The counterblast is a little clunky. I don't care about the soul blast, we have plenty of it, but I don't like that she's using a counterblast that we could be using with reverse or muse. However, it does give us more targets for Muse, so I'm not too upset. That's why I still really like her in the deck. I can just understand why the deck can feel a little clunky with her. I'm playing 3 Tree Sages. I have such like a love-hate relationship with Tree Sage in the deck. He synergizes really well with the starter. The starter says when she boosts and hits the Vanguard, put her into your soul, and you get to call a card off the top 5. It is rest, but if you hit Tree Sage, it turns into a +1. Same with Muse or reverse, where when they get to call out these cards, they get to plus another card. Especially with Muse, because then that can help us make an entire new column during the battle phase. I don't like the RNG of it though. Nectar has access to the Musketeer Tree Sage. She has the same ability, but she can get any Musketeer. So even if it's a grade 3, it doesn't whiff. Because whiffing with Tree Sage sucks. You then have a 7k vanilla for the rest of the game. I think he works. That's why I'm playing more of him now than I was, but I don't like RNG, especially in a deck that is already lower powered. Lotus Druid is really deceptively good. The 2k doesn't mean much, but when you get free copies of him with like a Muse or something during the battle phase, you can now put that 2k somewhere else that you might need it, and then still get that 6k body in a different column. This also can make it so like early game, you can make your 11ks hit 13ks if you're playing against like a Break Red or Nouvelle. You could definitely play like an 8k vanilla over him, and it would probably do just as much work. It's just Lotus Druid's more fun. I'm playing 5 draw, 4 stand, 4 heal. I'm playing the 4 stand because since the deck can plus on the board so easy, we don't have to lay as many cards from our hand. So instead of playing crits, because it kind of makes sense with crits because Muse and reverse can get so big, I just like the stands because let's say you call a card with Muse, the card is possibly small. So then being able to re-stand a booster for it then guarantees a hit, and I like that a lot. Or just early game, just hitting a stand and getting that second swing, even if that has to go at a rear guard, that's still another swing we didn't have. Now, when it comes to other options for the deck, like I said, there's not a lot of like upgrading you can do. If you don't like the self-damagers, playing some 10k vanillas totally makes sense. They make for a really good blocker, and getting to call a free 10k with like a Muse or something, yeah, it can feel pretty good. There's also like some kind of units I was considering playing, but the CB was too fat, like the Maiden, which is the CB2 draw card on hit. The counterblast is just too heavy, and the drawing isn't really needed. So since Muse needs to swing at Vanguard, that means units that are also fighting for that swing, like Jean, can't really make the cut because Muse is so needed for the deck to work and win. Really the only like upgrade I could see is maybe instead of playing the 12k attacker, you could maybe play Arbros as another ride target. I just think that since we already have technically 12 ride targets for the deck, Arbros isn't really needed. And I would rather have something that if I need to place it on rearguard just to swing at something, it'll work. Like I said, I just wanted to make an easy deck that had waifus in it and was going to be fun. I was starting to get kind of upset when I wasn't pulling the Venus girls, and I almost didn't finish it. But once I crafted like the 5 I needed and I started taking it to rank, the first person I ran into was a Musketeer player. And I was like, this isn't going to go my way. They're playing the same clan I'm playing, but they were playing the stronger version, I thought. And I ended up winning. And then I don't remember if it was like luck based or what it was, but it felt like I played a solid game and I out-tempoed them. It felt like tempo was a big thing with this deck. I went on to getting like a small win streak with the deck. It wasn't a lot. I think it was like 3 or something. But there was like real players I was against. One of them was even like a Revengers player. I wish I recorded it. It was like such a good game. I think they did misplay at one point, which did help me. But I remember ending the game with a PG still. So I still felt like I was going to survive even if they didn't have the misplay. And it was the same thing, like this deck can just out-tempo a lot of decks. I don't think, now that I'm thinking about it, it would do very well against like a Link Joker player. because since you're locking sometimes your own units, Chaos Breaker is just going to get some free kills. Then if they're starting to like pop your stuff, then that means like on a turn that you were possibly going to call a card with Muse, now you don't have one less card you can target, and that's possibly one less swing. So some control decks can really screw this deck over. Like I've lost to Kagero a lot with this deck just because it can't bounce back from all those like board wipes it can do. It can feel really clunky is kind of what I'm getting at if you're not getting the right pieces in the right order. But man, when that stuff starts to click, it's a really satisfying deck. Really satisfying. I'd like to give a quick shout out to 50 Card. He sent me some sick ass deck boxes. Really big fan of them. Like I said, triple rare, I'm gonna do a lot of stuff with it. I'm so excited. I have a lot of work that I was putting on the back burner because I needed artists to help me with it. But I started getting into some connections with people, and that ball has started to roll, and I'm so stoked on how they're turning out. As you saw, like that Lukier thing like blew up, and I'm so happy that people are like getting stoked about this stuff as I am. Keep an eye out on the triple rare like Twitter and Instagram for updates on when that new stuff's coming out. I don't know how to end these. That's all I got.